Welcome, everyone, to another Live with Lee broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. For some of you, there's going to be a little bit of a delay on your end. Promise you we will catch up. But we have a very interesting guests here today, and I want to introduce them to you in just a second. If you're not familiar with Academy and this is your first try with us, we focus on anything to do with attracting and retaining superior talent and improving those processes within organizations. So if you need any help in that area, just let me know. So getting right to it, we have David Bernstein, and we have Shyamala Prayaga. And David is an expert in HR technology, and Shyamala is an expert in voice conversational AI. I decided after a number of questions from HR leaders asking me what is the up and coming thing for voice inside the HR practice, I thought, what the heck, let's put chocolate and peanut butter together, so they say, and make this delicious, Reese's peanut butter cup. And here we have it. Now, as everybody also knows, I'm the lowest common denominator. So the questions that you're hearing are mostly from me, and so that we can all understand where this technology is going and how it will help us in our jobs. All right, so let's get started. David, did you want to introduce yourself any more than that?
I thank you. No, I'm good, Lee.
Okay. You're also, I meant to say that you're also part of JobSync, an organization called JobSync, and you'll tell us a little bit about that if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Is this the time?
Yeah, now's a great time.
Yep. All right. So really, I'm at the culmination of a long career in HR tech that started as a practitioner, actually, in a HR tech company called PeopleSoft. So many of you may know it was actually the precursor to what we think of as Workday today. So I was in the HR department as a practitioner in an HR technology company where we drank our own champagne. We used our own products. So it was a firsthand experience to really understand the intersection of people, process, and technology. Flash forward 26 years later, here I am now bringing products to market that are relative to that real same kind of business outcomes is really the key. And how do we introduce the kind of technologies that make workable, right? Improve the experiences, make work lives better so that people can do the real business work, not the paperwork and the administration work. So JobSync happens to be a purpose-built platform to support the workflows relative to talent acquisition. But throughout my career, I've really been focused on the whole employee lifecycle from hire to retire.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. And Shyamala is a frequent guest of ours, so everybody knows what you do, Shyamala. So we're just going to move forward. So let's ask the first question here. What is, when we think about digital assistance and voice, in my mind, I think two different things. So what is the connection between the two? Why don't we start with Shyamala on this?
So, see, my definition of digital assistant is, a system which is able to assist me do my things, right? An AI-based system. It could be helping me with my daily tasks or my calendar or anything. The medium could be chat or it could be voice. So chatbots is also digital assistant through which you can ask for concierge related things, book me the flight or order flowers or any kind of things, including HR related things, right? But you're getting quick information. Voice is another modality. Just to ask the same kind of things, get the same kind of information. You can ask a voice assistant to order flowers for you or book tickets or do similar kind of things. And even more, like turning on the lights and things like that as well, right? So for me, I would say digital assistants are a combination of voice and chatbot, helping the users do their tasks effectively and easily.
And we lost Lee. Lee's back.
Are you on mute? We can't hear you.
I sure am on mute.
It's okay.
David, anything to add to that?
I would confirm on the business side, I'll say that we've seen the same thing, right? That there's really been an evolution of workflow. The moment that we really started, so I started back in the client server days, I'll say, right, where that was a real challenge to create form-based application flows. So we ended up so back in 1995, I actually had a a very rudimentary IVR approach where the computer would call and leave a voicemail. The manager would actually return the call and then be prompted for press 1 for this answer, 2 for that answer, and some very early stage workflows that, right, with early client server based kind of automations. And here we are today where obviously we can leverage, web internet, and now how do we kind of add AI into this, right? So you can get the automation with some version of conversational capability, and how do we use that to kind of enhance the working experience? So definitely see the evolution, and it's really part of a bigger context of how do we get people to do their work and get work done. So in an HR context, some of that work is delivering employee services, candidate services. And so this extension of being able to kind of leverage voice is the great next frontier, right? But chatbots have been now covering like last 2 or 3 years have really started to kind of begin to take root. And so voice is kind of now the next capability set on top of that.
So it's interesting, David, that you bring up the press 1, go here, press 2, go there. That to me is like nails on a chalkboard, right? That inbound customer service kind of thing. It's horrible to me. Do we see that actually happening in HR because HR has many facets to it, right? They've got benefits, they've got unemployment, you've got, payroll, you've got all kinds of things. Is this happening in HR in terms of chatbots or anything?
Absolutely. There's a growing number of use cases where it's understood that one of the ways you can provide better, accurate, consistent, 24-hour-a-day type of services. Again, though, I still think it's very nascent. The early stage kind of use cases, though, are, for basic answers and questions, some rudimentary kind of transactional capability. But, someone who's working night shift and needs to be able to kind of get a question about their benefits, or where do they go do something, or, want to submit a transaction of some sort. I mean, HR teams aren't working necessarily at those hours. So how can you, right, provide a better engagement for that worker who needs some real-time information and not have to wait for someone to pick up the voicemail, get back to them when they're not on shift, let's say. And so there's definitely a growing amount of being able to leverage the kind of digital assistant, and then, as we were saying earlier, put voice on top of the digital assistant in both the pre-employee, so that the candidate world, as well as in the employee world.
So we did not prepare for this question in the green room, if so to speak, but I am going to ask it. How are we testing to make sure that the candidate's experience is improving utilizing digital assistants, or is it making them more frustrated? How do we know that it's improving the experience?
I can share with you some of the anecdotal stuff that I've seen and participated in. I think one of the things that so Lee, you were talking about earlier about press 1 and how now it's evolved to actually a voice, right? You can actually speak your choices, and the digital assistant knows where to direct you, right? So when someone keeps saying agent, 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 or starts using swear words or other things, right? There are tells, there are cues, there are verbal cues that let us know, right? So there's a similar thing in the digital assistant, right? If a candidate kind of keeps doing something over and over again, and the chatbot, right? So being able to analyze logs and data and kind of watching, is the transaction flowing, or is it actually added more time to a cycle, or are they trying to bypass the steps and go straight to a human, or kind of watching what really people are doing. One of the great things I think about digital assistant, and like we said, voice is now the next layer on it, but it gives you the ability to kind of see what users really want to ask and do, and what they're trying to achieve, right? And what answers they're trying to get to, and did the assistant give what was the intended hope, right? So testing for that kind of stuff is really fundamental. It's key to kind of, again, experiences matter, right? That's why we're doing this.
Shyamala, how can you translate that in terms of the voice component? Is that added layer of voice helping matters, or is it frustrating the user?
So, see, actually it depends on the use case and how we do. So, for example, we are such a big company. There are like 100,000 plus employees all over the world. There are employees, and now if you need to get any kind of information, it could be, before you started the company and you want to get information about. The company, the policies or benefits or things like that, or it could be when you are employed, you want to get any kind of letters, employment verification, or want to get some clarification or information on, hey, how does this benefit work, or I want to get my status or things like that. It could be anything, right? To the point where even when you have left the company, if you want any kind of experience letter, relieving letter, it is such a painful process right now. You have to email someone to do all of those things. IVR is a great idea to ease out things, and if done right, no one really would want to talk to an agent directly. They would want to interact with it. The challenge is the IVR systems are not yet there. They are improving, okay, but they are not yet there with all of these things. And that is the reason why many people will be like, well, you know what, I don't want to go through the one, two, three, and all, because it's too robotic. The moment you make it conversational and the moment you make it more human like how you and I are talking, or if I were to talk to an HR manager and say, I need this letter, can you give me, that's it. That is how we can ease out things and make it more useful for the users. And that is where a voice will be more beneficial. Of course, chatbot is there and many people will be using, but if someone is calling the system through phone, that is one way of going about it. Even companies are looking at creating unique apps, the HR specific apps, and voice enabling them would be a great idea. I don't have to go through a list of 100 different things to find out something, right? Just being able to ask, like, do this for me, or can you find me this information, or hey, can you get me more information on the 401k, or what's the status of my bonus, or things like that. You should be able to just do those things through whatever medium the user wants. There's no one way which is right.
Right.
So I would say voice is definitely going to be beneficial in a lot of ways.
Completely agree, Shamala. I would sum it up, not to, so just maybe saying it in some other words, but the idea of the experience matters. If it's frictionless, if it's easy, then it's a good outcome, right? Nobody calls HR, for example, to want to have a social chat, right? Their need is a quick hit. So if we can reduce the time it takes to get to the outcome and make that simpler, friendlier, right? Those are key outcomes. Your original question, Lee, how do we test for that? Can we measure that? We certainly can see it in the data, right? And are more people getting answered? Are more, is call volume? Are cases opened and closed faster? Right? There's a number of kind of data points that help you understand if the voice agent, the digital assistant, and then voice on top of that are really kind of increasing the velocity of the process, right? Which is an indication that friction's been reduced, experiences are higher, right? There's also surveys, right? NPS scores and other things like, would you recommend calling your HR team again based on this service, right? There's lots of ways to measure it. Anyway, hopefully that's a helpful kind of way to frame and think about it.
Lee, you're on mute.
Every time. I'm glad that you mentioned all that, David, because some of the HR departments that I've been working with directly are not closely tied to user experience. And even their learning functions are just now starting to look at learning experience design, right? So that was my number one concern. Are we taking this testing seriously, this research and testing in HR? Do they understand, do HR leaders understand the importance of research and testing? Are you finding that to be the case, David?
I think so. The last couple of years, I've gone from kind of helping people evangelize and understand the value of analytics, and it's now shifted more to understanding, AI and its role and what are those use cases and the ethical concerns, but how do you kind of leverage, because again, the goal of HR, right, is to kind of create value for people, not to process paperwork, right? Somebody does that, that's HR's domain, but that's really not the strategic HR capabilities, and kind of helping the company make money and save money is going to be predicated on more higher value added HR activity, not on the on the admin tasks, which now more and more can be relegated to machinery, right? Computers and whatnot. So this is where I think you're going to start seeing a growing cadre of HR people that really are more in tune and adept at these kind of things, like you're thinking about, Lee, and what you're talking about.
Excellent. Excellent.
Right?
Thank you.
I
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming into the fore. Yeah. So go on,
Nice.
Shamal.
Yeah, so what I was saying is, I would think about it slightly differently when it comes to, all of the things you're saying, David, especially with testing afterwards. One way of going about it is, why don't you create a small, like the app or your voice experience or your digital assistant experience, and have a bunch of your employees do beta testing even before you launch it out for everyone. That way, you are able to test out all the issues early on, or any communication issues or anything to fix it.
Right.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
So
so
I'm sorry. Anything else?
no, I think that what we're talking about are kind of service issues. There are other ways that I start seeing this digital assistant and voice technology being used in HR as well. So, but yeah, I think the first place that everybody's kind of gravitating to is there's a lot of process work to be done, and how do we kind of cut through that and make that easier? So that's kind of a general use case place to start. And as Shamala is saying, start small, test it, kind of make sure it kind of hits the goals. Fully would agree.
So let's talk about that. Shyamala mentioned earlier some use case scenarios for voice in HR. What other areas have you thought of that might be useful?
Well, on the candidate side, right, it's another high volume area, right? More people are trying to get into work that actually then do get hired, right? Recruiting is actually a rejection business, right? And how do you handle the volume of people, right, that have questions and need help, right? So the same kind of need inside the business exists for those that want to become part of your business. Um, Starting to also use digital assistants and voice to run real basic kind of Boolean searches, but that are done via the voice, right? Show me all, I'm looking for a job in, Tampa, Florida, right? Show me all the accounting jobs in Tampa, Florida can be typed, right? It can be done as a and or Boolean search, but it can be now typed more friendly. And now that leads us to being able to do it conversationally, right? So being able to ask a digital assistant questions and have it do some data mining for you is kind of another early stage use case that I see emerging. There's a lot of versions of that in the talent acquisition and in the HR world.
And they already exist. Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh, absolutely. There are vendors delivering those features today. Yeah. Or there's companies using platforms, automation platforms, RPA and digital assistant platforms to create those internally. Shamla, you probably have some experience on that.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen some of those experiences for sure, but I've also, like, what would be beneficial to think about from the use case standpoint is, the biggest thing is interviews happen, and after that, the candidates are left, like, without any updates. Well, why don't give them updates like, hey, it's still in progress, or sorry, we will not be able to. Sometimes what happens, it's so much volume for the companies, they don't send personalized email to everyone saying I'm sorry, or something like that, right? So things like that, being able to get the status. And another area, like, especially Google does this, right? Every time they are doing the they are doing the interviews. Employees, so every time they are doing the candidate interviews, they would send you best practices, how to do the interview, how to present your
Prepare.
portfolio, all
Mm-hmm.
of these kind of things, so that you are preparing. So if the companies really want the candidate to be successful, they should be looking at those kind of things as well in the digital assistant realm, because those are all really helpful things for people, and that will be the first impression they'll get about your brand. And they will then think about, because let's face it, there are many people who are struggling to get jobs, but there are many people who have options, many people who will choose between, like, which company should I go.
And right. And when it's
And
easier,
that
that leads. Yeah.
impression is what will make sense. So I feel like there's a lot of opportunities to raise the bar in the HR world.
Oh, and differentiate yourself at right. Um, the other use cases that are applicable across the enterprise have heavy use in both recruiting and in core HR. Scheduling, right, which is usually a back and forth email tag kind of thing. Calendlies are somewhat okay, but these digital assistants being able to manage, a conversation without so much ping pong is a godsend. And then the corresponding kind of or add-on piece of that is the nudge, right? And hey, Shamala, you got an interview today. I'm going to remind you. Can you please confirm you're coming? And offload that to a digital assistant, and kind of increases the likelihood of attendance and show ups. Haley, I noticed that you're due for a new certification. That class is available. Would you like me to schedule you for that class now, right? To keep your certification current. You can have the systems watch and then reach out to you and be proactive. This is just there's so many ways that this, anyway, I'm super excited if you can't tell. There's lots of places where this could plug in the future.
Yeah, I'm getting excited myself. So it's interesting that you bring up all of this, because I got a text message from a viewer who asked this question. Are digital assistants and conversational AI destined to eliminate positions like HR generalists? So
I don't think so.
All the things that you just said, like scheduling the appointments and making sure certifications are up and all
but
that
that's
stuff.
not HR work. That's admin work. Right.
Okay.
HR work is so different than that. HR has been relegated to do that. And in a day where that has to get done, then it becomes the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. People have to get that done. It kind of then takes over the other things that they should be doing, right? Kind of like you should save for college, but you got to put food on your table first. People kind of deal with the fires right away, and it impedes their ability to get to the real HR work. No, HR generalists and specialists and strategists will have. There's more bank tellers than in the world today, post ATMs, right? We all know those stories. I think that the same thing's going to happen. The need for smart people to understand how to drive value through the human people, through your employees, is going to be key.
See,
So,
I totally agree with you, David, on this. And one thing, what I would say is, it's not about replacement, it's about optimization. So it's not about, well, the jobs will be replaced or something like that. Think about it. There are redundant tasks which a person needs to do on and on again and again, which may not be efficient for them. If a digital assistant is able to do those things, for example, in customer care realm, all the, let's take Amazon for example. Amazon gets so many calls every day. Where is my package? Or I want to return or refund. If those kind of things can be optimized, then we're not saying that the entire customer care agent will be replaced or the entire system will be replaced. We still need them. It's the same kind of thing. We need to find the areas which is commonly being used and where optimization can be applied, and just use that for the digital assistant use cases. But still, all these skill sets will be needed. We still have other areas where the HR generalist or other associates would be required.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have this taken into a banner and wrapped around my house, because as much as I try to profess this, it fear innately hits the human psyche, right? So as soon as somebody who might be in an entry level position, they're saying, oh, this is going to eliminate that entry level, that entree into HR. And the answer is no, it's not. It's just going to give you an opportunity to show how you leverage technology to improve efficiencies within the organization. So there we have that.
But if you're only good at scheduling and that's your job in life, then that job will likely be automated. Then I'd be. So the future of work kind of concepts and digital transformation are about redesigning the work that people do. And how does the business then leverage that to kind of keep going forward? That's the magical stuff here, right? And we kind of now offload. We've been doing this for centuries, right? We've been automating, and right, you went from a shovel on the farm to having tractors to having, right? So we only have people do things when they have to do them. If we can unencumber the people, optimize their work, like Shama was saying, then you get new outcomes, right? That's the promise of digital transformation. Right.
And so it's important for HR folks to continually learn new technologies and new capabilities and new skills that you've got to be a continual learner, period.
Don't stop learning. Yes, you can't stay. It's like a shark. If you stop, you die. Yes.
It's true.
Yeah.
So we have another question here. And this is, what ethics or other considerations should be factored into product development when integrating voice capabilities into HR products? And let's start with Shyamala on that one.
Yeah. So ethics and other consideration. And the moment we talk about ethics, the first thing which comes to my mind is inclusivity and bias, right? So when we are designing the product, if we are just designing voice-based product, then we are discounting or excluding people who may have difficulty in speaking or some sort of speech disorders. But if we are just using chatbots, then we are discounting people who may not be able to see or have some sort of vision impairment. So there has to be a balance. We need to have a proper strategy, like how do we think about making our product more inclusive and not having any sorts of bias. As of now, market already has a lot of bias when it comes to voice assistants, the female voice. Most of the voice assistants are default female, right? Now they have started giving options. That is a bias. And if we start adding those kind of things, like, well, the because it is HR and most of the HR are female and those kind of things, if we start putting those things, then we are adding biases from both the ends. So we have to be really careful. How do we want to think about this in first place? The second thing I would say is we need to really think about all the different kind of accents and all the different kind of users who will be using the product, so that we are supporting all of those languages, all of those accents, and all of those demographics who will be using the product. Because right now some of the voice assistants have issues understanding black voices, like 21% of the time they don't understand. And even with female voices or some accents, they don't understand. So those are ethical concerns which is there regardless of whether it is in HR products or not. But then we have to really be thinking about those as a broader spectrum, and also related to HR products as well, because those are really important.
I would only add to that, just to kind of, when we have the digital assistants doing things for us, when we start to transition to have them start deciding things for us, right? Right. So there's been a rush to do some digital assistant or some kind of AI analysis type of work on assessing people for fit for jobs and other things. And then those are obviously underpinned by large analytic models that are taught based on data, but the algorithms and the data it's fed in and two together, there's a lot of kind of information out there in the blogosphere you can read about the unintended consequences of building algorithms that looked at existing data that had hiring biases in the core data. So then the algorithms just replicated what was already being done, but never really talked about. But now it's calculated into the learning algorithms, and it now thinks that's what's good, and it just amplifies a bias even further. So anyway, I just kind of on this theme of ethical concerns, right? We all bring unconscious bias to our work world because that's humans. It's a survival tactic. We need to make discerning, quick decisions. So we're wired that way. But how do we then be aware of what those biases are and then try to do things to address it, and then not, and make sure we don't incorporate those into these algorithms that are behind the scenes. I'm just, the big concern obviously is when assistants start making decisions based on inputs. I think that's just kind of a careful area. Obviously, the only other one that I would kind of throw out is data privacy, use of data, right, and the security around which are not new to digital assistants. Those are just long-standing HR topics around concern about handling that information.
Thank you both for that. So we've got about 30 seconds left, and this goes fast, doesn't it? So I do want to say that at that point, David, it's important for us as organizations and leaders within organizations that we get an outside opinion, that we get outside help in helping us understand what are our biases, because we're too close to see them. We're just too close to see it. So that's when I always call in adult supervision, which is why I asked you to join this call. So let's go ahead and round this out. Shyamala, for those of you who are new, which I'm forgive me, Shyamala, I should have said at the very beginning, Shyamala is the head of Ford's autonomous vehicle conversational voice AI design capability, and she is also the founder of Digital Assistant Academy, which focuses on voice training our next generation to create conversational products. Shyamala, how do people get a hold of you if they want to get a hold of you?
I'm very active on LinkedIn, so they can just look up my name, Shyamala Prayaga, and also I'm very active on Twitter. So my handle is Prayaga. So find me there.
Okay, thank you. And David, how do people get a hold of you for some help in this area?
Absolutely. You can reach me on LinkedIn as well. Or you can email me at dbernstein@jobsync.io. I'm happy to respond to any questions.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Shyamala and David, thank you so much again for joining us. Thank you to all of those who are watching live, as well as those who are watching post-broadcast. If you have any questions for me, you know how to get a hold of me. Thanks again, and have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Lee.